Good afternoon. Happy New Year. Happy May Day. And the following video is going to be about May Day. Okay? This, as a preliminary, I'll just let you know we're at a different angle than one of our first videos from early last summer when the former Vice President Pence was here fundraising. Remember the plane behind me? Okay, that's just a different angle. We were over there, okay? And going back into the airport. You could see one of the three planes that was here. Sorry, that's a side note. So that's where we are. We're at the bottom of the Nobodere Hill. Okay. This is my vaccination card. Okay? I got my first dose of Pfizer yesterday. Okay? I want to say something about vaccinations. Some of it's abstract. Some of it is extremely personal, and this is excruciating. But I've got to do it. Okay, where to begin? My own story. I think we will start with a personal. I've been trying to get set up for vaccination for months, since the end of February. And I have not two, but three underlying conditions. And also a life situation that, utterly separate from that, creates a fourth vulnerability. Nevertheless, April 30th, before my first shot. My mother and I have a very, very difficult, strained relationship. In fact, it's pretty much indescribable. But I want to say something about that, because the last time we happened upon one another was actually out here on the South Shore. And we hadn't really spoken in years, other than en passant in the hospital as I was coming out of getting my allergy shots, and she was in for a broken wrist. Excuse me. So we ran into one another. She came to Stones Beach, and I'd been there for hours. And we had, if I may say, what I would imagine is a normal mother-child, mother-son conversation about her wrist. And given the way that I am, I hope, showing empathy by asking a lot of analytical questions, a lot of medical questions. And we had a very, very good, positive interaction for probably 10 to 15 minutes, while we went through a detailed discussion regarding the update on her wrist. Then, subsequently, I made the mistake of asking her if she was going to get vaccinated and if she was excited, because of course she would have been amongst the first, because she also is in a group living situation and a group elderly living situation, so first in line. And what happened was what has happened throughout my life, or at least since I was 7 or 8 years old. And I immediately got a shake of the head and a wan expression, and then the beginning of a sentence regarding her religious ideology. And after all these years, I finally cut her off, and I just put my hand up and I said, I do not want to hear another word about any of your religious ideology. Okay? So that's the contrast, and that's the irony. The irony is I've wanted very, very much to be vaccinated. I got my first one yesterday. and then it's 3 weeks for the second one. And then, of course, and I hope everybody realizes this, you don't get full protection until you're weeks beyond your second dose of the Pfizer and the Moderna. Not the case with the other vaccines, but the other vaccines aren't necessarily as efficacious. Okay? So, I mean, it's going to be June before things are normal, shall we say. Mid-June. Okay, so that's the contrast. That's the personal. Now I want to go to the abstract. We have people around the world in leadership positions. Some of them are prime ministers, some of them are kings or queens. Some of them are presidents. Some of them are leaders by fiat. One could argue modern day dictators. Spiritual leaders as well. The leaders, world leaders, have to be, in my mind, in absolute accordance with the scientific genius that is out there in the world. And if there is a lack of accordance, there is tremendous unnecessary human suffering. There already has been. I think particularly with spiritual leaders, if I may say, if they want to talk to their congregants, parishioners, followers, acolytes, devotees, all of the different, and many more terms from different formal religions and informal religions. If they want to give people a connection to God or the great mystery, I think one of the things that one looks at where you can be pretty sure that is there is in the minds, in the brains of these scientists who are world-class, world historical geniuses. And for us to take for granted or to chafe against that, to me it's heartbreaking. I said last year, we Homo sapiens sapiens have to be A+. The creation of these vaccines is actually our ability to morph. We are dealing with a virus that is morphing, and we don't even know what's going to happen with it. We just have a handful of variants. There could be many more variants, and more pernicious variants. Is that 4 more minutes, or I'm at 4 minutes? Sorry, 4 more minutes? Okay. We have to be A+, and we may still not be able to contain this. And people need to be reminded as well. Yes, this is an exotic coronavirus, but it's a coronavirus. We may be dealing with all sorts of even greater challenges in the short-term future, let alone superbacterium. And believe me, we're going to encounter some bacterium that we haven't seen as the permafrost dissolves or thaws. But that's really, I'm getting into a whole other conversation. In any case, we need to marshal everything we have. And I'm speaking to the world, but I also want to shift for a moment back to the United States. If Americans want to know what Americans are capable of, I don't like using a war analogy, but I think it's important, or an example. If you want to see what this culture is capable of, I wouldn't say the moon landings, because the Russians were right with us. Look at World War I. Look at that army that was built from nothing. Getting right into things. countries involved that had professional, battle-hardened armies throughout the centuries leading up to that, leading up to 1914. Okay? Just look at what we did. And then if you want to go beyond that, look at what FDR did and look at what Eisenhower did. Go and look at the videos of the work projects that Eisenhower created in the 50s. Go and look at those. We absolutely can do it, but I tell you, we drag ourselves down and we are our own worst enemies. And I'll have a lot more to say about that. I really want to stay on COVID and vaccine on this one. But it is heartbreaking to see people not do this for religious reasons, and they're not isolated. They don't live on Muskeget, okay? Or, you know, another, and by the way, I was being absurdist with that. Muskeget is not open to libertarians or anybody else. You know, if somebody wants to go and live in isolation and not get vaccinated, I suppose, you know, and my mother could do this. She actually could do this. She could go to Cotuh, to her friend's cottage with her four-wheel drive vehicle. She's very hardy, okay? Anglo-Saxon, Viking, Norman woman. You could easily do this. Get your thermal sleeping bag provision or leave every few days. Go and do that, okay? We are communal. And believe me, I'm a heck of an individualist. We are communal. And when people are choosing not to be vaccinated, they're affecting other people, especially when you're living in truly a communal living situation. Okay, with people surrounding you who have extra vulnerabilities. Okay, so that's truly heartbreaking. And so I just wanted to give the contrast just in my own family and how something can interfere with a decision. And by the way, her decision is based on influence from India. It's about almost as far as you can get on the planet. And the double irony beyond our own family situation is look at what has happened in India. There were 360,000 new cases in India on Wednesday and 380,000 on Thursday. I didn't check yesterday's. In Delhi and environs, they're running out of space to cremate people. It's an absolute plague. And I'll talk more about that subject or more broadly about that subject later. But it's heartbreaking to see what's going on in many places. But India and Brazil have become, and I was terribly afraid that would happen in both cases, and it has. And I actually said something about Brazil last summer. Okay, I'm going to stop this one, okay? In any case, yes. And by the way, the gentleman behind the camera, he got his first vaccination weeks ago. And I meant to say that at the beginning, but here we are at the end. So he's almost ready for his second one. And we've both gotten Pfizer. Okay, so on to the next video.